are going to be talking about several different things, but we're also going to be talking about a wonderful organization and the story behind that organization. And so let's get right into this. So welcome, 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 Dr. Carolyn and David. How are you this evening? Thank you for joining me.
Doing really well, thank you.
Yeah, we're excited.
Thank you.
We're thrilled to be in your podcast.
Yes.
Well, I'm extremely honored, and they're all the way in New Jersey, and I'm in Nebraska, so we're grateful for this wonderful technology that makes this all possible. And so, you know, I found out about this organization because a mutual friend of ours, Rebecca, invited me to be on your program that happens every Saturday morning. But it goes so much deeper than that. And I ended up reading my book, From Bully to Bestie, and everywhere that I go and everyone that I talk to that will listen to me, I talk about how this was one of the most remarkable, amazing experiences of my life. And I'm really not just saying that because I don't think that I realized what all it encompassed, and that I would actually be talking to students from all over the world. I mean, there were children that were listening who were from Africa. There were children that were from India. They were and the United States. And so I didn't quite realize the broad spectrum of that event and how that was going to shape my life. And I literally remember getting off of that call, and I was so moved that I was telling somebody about it, and it brought tears to my eyes because it was so cool. It was one of the coolest things I'd ever done. And so it is the God's honest truth. I sincerely, it to this day is one of the most remarkable experiences that I've had. And so I so very much feel like you deserve the platform, you deserve the time, and I want desperately for my audience to know more about the phenomenal people that the two of you are. And so I'm going to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself and talk about your family and things, but I definitely want to talk about your phenomenal organization that helps children all over the world, and it's called Voice of Our Child. Can you tell us, can you first introduce yourselves and then tell us how Voice of Our Child started? I mean, where did the idea come from, and how did this all happen?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us. We are very excited, and just you being on our Zoom summit was just such a welcome to these kids. And I'm always so much against bullying, and then to have somebody who's actually written a book about it and read to these kids, and then you giving the books, it's like all the kids are so excited. We're very, very grateful for your generosity, and I could tell that you really enjoyed yourself just from talking to you after that. You want to first introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is David Verkaik. I'm the happy husband of Dr. Caroline Verkaik. And I'm very honored to be, working with her with this Voice of Our Child. It means a lot to me. It focuses on mentorship of children, and the people that we're looking to talk to are the kids that are dealing with difficult things like depression or being bullied, as your book was speaking to. And those are things that I myself have dealt with. As a child, I was bullied. As a child, and actually throughout my life, I dealt with depression and dealt with feelings of self-hatred or putting myself down. And those are things that because of the Voice of Our Child has really helped me to kind of focus and look on and realize that there's a lot of people that are dealing with those same things. And this organization is helping children, but it's also helping me as well. So I really appreciate being a part of this with Caroline, with Dr. Caroline.
I am Caroline Verkaik, and I'm David Verkaik's wife. I was born in Kenya and I moved to the United States 25 years ago. So I've kind of lived like half of my life in both countries, and that tells my age. And I'm the second born in a family of five. I did not grow up poor, but I did not also not grow up rich. So poor, not growing up poor in Africa was that we had a meal every day. So so that's what the definition of not poor. And and when I moved to the United States, I met David and we got married. And I had been married before. I had two kids. He had two kids, so we have yours, mine, and ours. We got two together. So in total, we have six kids. And the currently the CEO and founder of the Voice of Our Child, and we'll talk more about it. And also Water Gap Africa Safaris, which is a tour company that um, takes tourists to Kenya, but also provides clean water and school supplies to the kids there. And I used my platform. I was Mrs. Kenya in 2007 and Mrs. Pennsylvania in 2009. When I was Mrs. Kenya, my platform was bringing clean water to Kenya and education to the girl child. And after I competed, I started the Water Cup Africa Safaris. And with the Mrs. Pennsylvania, my platform was reducing the rate of suicide and depression in our kids. And after that, I founded the Voice of Our Child, which is the organization that offers that kind of mentorship. I also work with the Mrs. America and the Mrs. World as their contestant coordinator and also as one of their chief negotiators, where I travel the world and meet with prime ministers and government officials to discuss sites for the Mrs. World. So I have been very privileged to be able to do that. And it's one of my favorite jobs because I love people and I love like talking to these women, and most of them end up being like my clients in the courses that I offer, my 6 to 8 courses on how to pivot from just having your platform to making it your passion, to making it your project. And then just the other day, I founded Beauty Pageant Take Two podcast. And because I realized that as a contestant and also as a judge who has judged so many different pageants and as a contestant coordinator, I have seen how women get so ready to go into a pageant, and then when they don't win, they go home, they fall into some form of depression, they start second guessing themselves, they start, and their families wondering like, oh, you didn't win, so like that's the end of it. Like you had just gone there like to take the crown. But I realized that the interview with the judges is always such a critical moment for contestants. That's when they get to interview for their job and talk about their platforms. But it's never aired. We see the swimsuit and evening gowns, never the interview the judges. So my podcast interviews contestants who didn't get to take the crown home on their platforms, what they're planning to do. And my focus is to showcase to the world these phenomenal women, these entrepreneurs and what they're doing in the community to save the world. Because I believe competing in a pageant is like running for office. We all want to be a voice for others.
I love several things that both of you said. First of all, I'll go back to David, but I very much appreciate, I think that we can be even more so grateful for people who are authentic. And so the fact that you're willing to share that you struggled with self-doubt and depression and self-esteem, and that because someone to look at you, someone that's as successful as you have a beautiful, you have a stunning wife and a beautiful life, someone would look at you and say that that never affected him, or that he probably never struggled with that. And in actuality, that's so brave of you to come out and speak about that. And I appreciate you and your truth. So thank you for sharing that with us and with our audience. And then Dr. Carolyn, I could not agree more that oftentimes, I mean, you have such an illustrious career, but especially your new podcast that's lending a voice to females who have been within the pageant industry. Sometimes there's a negative connotation, and I know that you would agree with me in saying this, that many of the women that I have met while I would have been running for Miss Nebraska for America, and then since then, are world changers. I mean, that's how I met you. That's how I met Rebecca and Adair and all of these phenomenal women who are out there and who are really, really changing our world and working to change our world. And while a crown is important and it's fun, I think that sometimes people have a misconception that it's really truly the passion and the drive, and you have to have a why you're doing something. You have to have a why as to, what causes you to get up every morning and do what you do and shed light on things. And so thank you so much for doing that. And I think that's just a very important, an extremely important piece that to showcase women. And why did you decide to do this? Or why are you standing here trying to advocate for this issue? And what does it mean to you? So thank you. Thank you to both of you.
You're welcome.
For what you're doing. And I mean that.
I love doing that. I think that I have the best, most beautiful clients in anybody who has a podcast.
Yes, exactly. For sure you do. For sure.
I have the best clients. Their stories just inspire me.
Not only, and I think so very important that, not only are they gorgeous on the outside, but they're gorgeous on the inside.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Oh, game changers, truly, yes.
Yes. So Dr. Carolyn, this question is for you. Can you tell us a little bit about your background? And you touched on it a little bit, but where you're from and how you were raised. Can you tell us a little bit about your family and anything you'd like to share from your childhood?
Sure, yes. Like I said, I grew up in Kenya, and I'm the second born in a family of 5. I have 2 sisters and 2 brothers. We grew up in a place called Ngong Hills, and that's where they shot the Out of Africa movie. It's right next to the Karen Brixton Museum. So when I was a kid, we used to run up and down the Ngong Hills with my brothers, because it's literally behind my parents' house. It's a very, very beautiful place. My first years of school, we went to a school that we had to walk like maybe an hour to get to. And most of the kids we went to school with used to go barefoot. We started going barefoot. And then, of course, after some time, my parents were able to afford and buy us shoes. We used to trade our shoes with the other kids in the village because we wanted to feel the mud and everything in our feet. And we thought it was cool. And then we'd get home and we'd wonder how our mom knew that we had walked barefoot the whole day. And but as a little girl, I was never shy, and I loved school, and I just loved what it brought. And I remember when I was 9 years old, the vice president was coming to our school, and I got selected to be the one to present the flowers. But I'm a social butterfly. They couldn't find me on that day because I was busy somewhere talking to other kids. And I remember then later, as my dad got a better job and everything, he wanted to move us to a city school, and me and my brother were terrified to go to a city school because this was the capital, like of Nairobi. And we went there, and I remember being in that grade and not even knowing the alphabet. Like, we went to class and we were looking at all these city kids, and their English was better than our English, because English is a third language in Kenya. So when I was born, I spoke Kikuyu, which is one of the tribes in Kenya. There's 42 different tribes. I spoke Kikuyu, which is my mother tongue. And then I spoke Swahili, which is now like a business language where people from different tribes can communicate with each other. And then when we go to school is when we learn English. And here you are in a village school, probably where the teacher is not even fluent in English herself. So when we went to a city school, it was quite a challenge. And so I remember not really doing well in class and just being mortified about it. I was like, what is wrong with us? Like, we were in school, like, what kind of schooling did these kids go to? But then really working hard. And I remember one of my mom's brothers taught me how to read. And I was so excited to read. It was one of like those, like the book you have written, but it was more about like a family going to school and all these things. And so I was very excited to be able to read. And And I remember being in the debate club and acting and being on TV, but I never even got to see it because we didn't own a TV then. My friends and my aunt who had the TV told us that I was on TV. Up to today, I've never seen that clip. I think that I should actually go look for it. But then worked really hard and went to a good high school, and I got an award for being the most well-behaved student in the school. It was really great. I don't know how that happened, but it did. But I was always somebody who was always grew up knowing that you had to follow the rules. I really respect the law, and I tell my kids all the time to respect authority. And from there, I went to high school. I was selected to be the school president, and again, all those things instilled in me a leadership. I remember when I was in third grade, my teacher writing on my report card that I had very good leadership qualities. I didn't even know what that meant. But now I saw it along the way as I went. And I remember being in my pre-university and writing a play that, like I was in drama team and having that play acted nationally. So that was great. And my first job was in the tour industry. My parents didn't have the resources to take me to college. So I started working in the tour industry. And I'm glad that I did, because by the age of 23, I had my own tour company. And I was living in a nice house in the city. And then I got married shy of 25. And I moved to the United States and was in an abusive relationship. And so it didn't work, and I got divorced, and then I met David. So that in a nutshell is my life growing up in Africa. So then I'll probably, if you have another question, I can talk about my life in America if you want me to continue.
Yes, no, I absolutely, and our viewers will love that too.
Okay.
I love that every piece of your life, I really feel like God was guiding you to be successful in the next,
Yes.
in your next adventure. Like whether
Yes.
it's that you were a little girl and you were selected
Yes.
to be the president and the excellent leadership skills. And then sometimes, we have beauty for ashes. And so everything that you went through, and then now to be with David and to be in the position that you are in now, it was all just preparing you and leading you up to that. And I think that's an important thing. And I think that you and David would agree with this, that each of us in our life, sometimes when we thought, me being an English teacher, I sometimes tell my kids, don't put a period where God wants there to be a comma, meaning just don't stop.
Right.
I think that it's the worst. It's the worst thing that you could go through or whatever, but it's really just a comma. You're just going to pause and you're going to learn from it, and then you're going to go on. And so that's what I gleaned from your story, which it's such a beautiful story.
It definitely prepared me for my life now. I remember always wanting to be an attorney, because when I was 12 years old, thugs broke into my parents' house, and we were young there, and they beat up my dad and left him for dead. And he was in the hospital for the longest time. And I was able to identify one of the guys in a lineup, being 12 years old. Actually, I was 11, but by the time the case went to court, I was 12. And standing in front of the high court and pointing to that guy and saying, I remember you, you were in my house and you're the one, And so, but then the justice system there being the way it is, I thought to myself, I always wanted to be an attorney. I wanted to fight for,
Justice.
other people's rights. And I remember growing again without clean water, and my mom going to wash clothes in the river, and as like having like things like amoeba in our stomach because we were drinking contaminated water. And I remember one time our house almost caught fire because we used to have these big cans that my dad used to go buy water with and put in the car. And one day he put gas there. He went, to the gas station and put gas in two of them. So me and my brother are carrying it, and we're like, this is kind of light today, and not even thinking about it. And so we take it to the kitchen, and we used to live on a farm. So the farm guy who used to milk the cows comes, and he used to come and get warm water, hot water to go, I guess, clean the cows. And I remember the housemaid pouring the gas in the hot water, and there being an explosion, and we almost got burnt. And my dad was like very quick, threw us out of the house, and his whole arm got burnt. So it was like just really things that in your childhood prepare you just to be tough and, and be resilient. And yeah, and even when I came to the US, maybe I should just continue about coming to the US. When I came to the US, my first job was in the Kodak film processing. I was voted again as the best employee with the highest film production. I was working Thanksgiving, Christmas every day. And then there came an opportunity to apply to being a lab analyst. And I could see all these guys in white working in the lab. And I thought I could do it. And I applied, and I was the first female actually to be a lab analyst at Kodak until they started shutting down, and I left the place. But after that, I went and I got a job as a flight attendant with Executive Jet Aviation. And that's owned by Warren Buffett, and I got an award for being the most outstanding flight attendant of the year. So all these things followed me, and before I used to say, this is God. Like, these people have no idea my humble beginning in the village, and this is really not even my education. This is really God uplifting me and putting me in these situations. But I realize, and I tell my kids all the time, that God will give you those opportunities if you're shining and standing out, if you're obeying the rules, if you're showing your faithfulness and putting a lot of work. So these people saw things in me that I didn't see. I just always saw myself as that poor little girl in the village. But these people saw something different and got me into those positions that I was in.
I love
David.
I love that you say that, and I love that you're so humble and that you do give that to God, because what is even more impactful about your story is that because other people blessed you and believed in you, you're now paying it forward and seeing and seeking out those gifts in other women and saying, you can do it, you have the confidence, you can be a great public speaker, you can start this organization. And so I love that your story has come full cycle. And I also love, since we're from Nebraska, that Warren Buffett owned the airline.
Yes. Yeah, it was a good boss.
A good boss. Yes.
Yeah.
But you have a phenomenal personality, but I love that due to the fact, that you admit that you saw yourself one way, but that other people saw those gifts and talents. And that's so very important, I think, for our kids to realize that sometimes it's not even, and I say this respectfully, but it's not about them. It's about what they can give to other people or how they can encourage other people, and then they themselves will be blessed, which is so very important. And I so also appreciate you sharing about, because in one thing that I've noticed in being a teacher is that my students, I have so many students from different countries, and it's oftentimes just a perspective shift in that they teach students who have grown up in America their entire lives so much, because and it's not good, bad, or indifferent, but sometimes we can take things for granted, right? As human beings.
Definitely. Definitely. Yes.
And it's very important, I think, to surround yourself with loving people from different cultures who have had different experiences than you, because you just don't know always how good you have it. And sometimes, it's a choice to be happy. It really is.
Definitely, yes.
It's a choice every day. And so thank you so much for sharing that. So David, we will move to you. So can you do the same and tell us about your background and tell us a little bit about how you were raised and your upbringing as well?
Sure. My father was a pastor of a church in the Reformed Church, and he was in seminary, which is graduate school, when I was born. They lived off campus, and I came into the world, and they seemed pretty happy. I don't remember that, but on the pictures anyway, they seemed pretty happy.
You tell a story of being happy.
And then, so because my father was a pastor, we would move quite often. So, and also not just because he was a pastor, but because he was a very good pastor. He spoke very good. He very well. His messages from the front of the church were very inspiring, and a lot of people uh, would come and listen to him. And the church would initially be small amount of people, and every time we were at a church, it would grow very quickly to a few different services from just one small service. And that also made it the reason that we ended up moving a lot is because then within 8 years, people would start coming and hearing him, and they would have a vacancy in their church, and they would start asking my father to go and be the pastor at their church. So every 8 years or so, I'd have to leave all my friends and go to visit a new place or move to a new place. And I don't think I ever really minded it because it was kind of fun when I first got to another place. Then I was able to find friends pretty easily. Um, and even though I think I'm kind of shy, but I was able to make friends really quickly. And so when we lived in Michigan, where my father was in seminary, then from there, my dad's first church was in Grand Rapids, and so I lived there until I was into some like grade school. I went to kindergarten through around fourth grade. Then we moved to Iowa. I was there until my junior year of high school, and then we moved to Michigan again. Actually, there was Chicago in the middle there. I forgot about that. So there was some grade school there, and then we moved back to Michigan area where I went through part of my high school, and then we moved again, and I finished up my high school to a different place in Michigan, and from there I went to college. So the things I was interested in school, I was very much interested in music. I would sing in all the choirs in the school. I would be in drama, especially ones that involved singing. So I was in like Carousel in Oklahoma, and I always had the lead part because I could sing, and so they picked me because I sang a lot, and you wouldn't want somebody who couldn't sing very well to be the lead. So not that I was some fantastic actor, but I knew how to sing. So I enjoyed that a lot. I also was involved in sports. Uh, I was involved in basketball and football. I never really was much in the games, but I really enjoyed it because I was able to play basketball and football with a bunch of kids on a big court, or a big basketball court, or a big field of football. So that was always a lot of fun for me. Um, the thing that I competed well with was track and field, and also cross country. So in track and field, I usually ran longer distance runs. Like, well, I ran the half mile, I ran the mile and the 2 mile, and in cross country, of course, those are longer races. And in those, I could compete really well, and I was in the top five of the students in my school for those longer distance running events. And I really enjoyed that. I mean, afterwards, I would run sometimes too, like after high school and so forth, just for the fun of it. I would go and take a run out in the farms and stuff like that. When we lived in Michigan, not too far from our house, there was farm country. Now most of that place, when I come back and look at it, most of it is built up, and there's malls there. The high school I went to is now a junior high, and they built a huge high school out there in the farmland where I used to go running. So I was involved a lot with the music. I went to college and got involved in music there as well. I initially was going to be I trained to be a music teacher, which I was for a while. I taught music in New Jersey for about 4 years. And then I decided to stop being a teacher, and I got into the business that I'm in now, which is has to do with imports and exports, and our company is called a broker of that type of that type of work. So in other words, people that want to import things into the U.S., or they want to export things, or what I'm involved with is called duty drawback, which is where we help people to get the money that they pay the government when they import things into the US, that they have to pay an import duty or some other taxes. I help them to get that money back. So I really enjoy that. I've always enjoyed being at a desk and working with computers and the phone and talking to people and that type of thing. I don't know why. I just enjoy being at a desk and working like that. Other people would drive them crazy because they don't want to sit still at a desk. I don't think Caroline would like that. So, but I enjoy it, and I still am doing that kind of stuff now. But I'm getting involved with the Voice of Our Child, and well, I'm very involved with the Voice of Our Child and Water Gap Africa Safaris and so on. And I help Caroline with anything that I can possibly help her with these different businesses, and I'm very proud of how Dr. Caroline is doing with those things.
I think
So one thing I also wanted to say about something that Caroline was talking about that she forgot to say. There's a lot of things that, you know, Caroline goes and does some work on something, and then all of a sudden it seems like it all fails or everything falls apart. But what Caroline does is she always knows that, so it stops there. It doesn't mean it's the end. It's like the comma you were mentioning before. She ends up knowing that God is going to present her with something that's even more fabulous than what she has there. So I'm very impressed to see how she lets God take control of her life, and in those difficult situations, she's confident and she's peaceful about it. She knows that something better is going to happen after something happened to her in you know, her marriage. She divorced. My marriage got divorced. I thought it was the end of the world when I got divorced. I thought that I would never recover. I did, and I'm married to Dr. Caroline, and I'm very happy. So, and but I'm very impressed with that her faith in God, and that when she hits a bump in the road, she's not worried. She just keeps going forward, and she knows something is going to open up. And it's cool because within a very short time, it opens up, and there's hardly much time to worry about it or even get, you know, concerned. And I know those same things happen to me, but I get more concerned and worried about it than she does. I'm not as good at feeling that, you know, that faith. I mean, I believe in God, but I mean, the feeling, the faith that, oh, I don't have to worry, and, you know, shortly it's going to be much better. So I'm impressed with her. That's, I guess, you know, she's more mature than I am or something. So.
Well, I mean, just from completely having met you guys recently, I would have to say that you're such a, you both complement each other so extraordinarily well. And I truly mean that. And I think that what you say is so very important because, you know, it says that it's not always, I mean, it says in the Bible, it's not always going to be easy, but it's those people that have a mustard seed of faith, and, you know, he will help you move mountains. And so that's what, I mean, I think that that's what you both have. And the fact that you brought up about, you know, your marriage, there's so many people today that's once again, that's not a period. That's not, I had a marriage that didn't work out, and the same thing, as both of you, where, you know, you feel judged by society, or you feel judged that you're a failure, or that this, that, and the other. And that's just not the case. And then look at you and look at what God did and brought this phenomenally beautiful woman in your life. And it's almost, I mean, it's better than you could have ever imagined before. I mean, he had a better plan for your life than you did, right? So,
and it's a blessing too, what I got besides Caroline. I got 2 children, her daughter Sandra and Salma, who are wonderful girls, and I was able to, you know, be involved in their lives. And at that point, I didn't have as much access to my children's life because the lady who I was married to before was making that very difficult for me. Eventually, you know, now we're best buddies with my kids. But
they're 2 of the most wonderful kids. Yeah.
But I was able to have, you know, I was so happy that Caroline had two children of her own, and I was able to go take them on, you know, they were young. I took them with a stroller every night after work and walked around the town with them. And, you know, people would look at me with these two little black girls in the stroller. So, but it was nice. I just loved being with them. And then we were blessed with having two children of our own as well. So, and not just not you know, forget about her parents and her family. I mean, her parents are the most wonderful parents that you can imagine, because I mean, I feel like they're my parents. I will never call them mother and father-in-law because they're my parents, which I don't would I never want to call them mom and dad-in-law, because they treat me like I'm their son, and they don't call me anything but son. They don't call me son-in-law, which I love. They're just very loving people.
That is beautiful, because once again, and I think, and just from meeting your children on the Voice of the Child calls, they are the most respectful, you can tell, just like God-fearing, wonderful children, and they love you both, you know. So many times, I think kids sometimes go through periods where it's not cool, or they're, you know, buying into what their friends say or whatever, that it's not good to, you know, always be respectful to your parents. And your children are both just the loveliest kids. I mean, they're truly are. So
We're very blessed. You should say that.
Blessed,
we're truly blessed. Yeah, we sometimes think about them and go like, wow, they're really good kids.
I know, right?
It's like you it's one of those situations, you hang out with other people's kids and you're like, oh, thank God. Like, thank God. Thank you.
No, we are truly blessed.
Yes,
I mean,
definitely.
we are truly blessed. They are just beyond, like, they are really good kids.
But it's a testament to your strength in your marriage, but also, I mean, honestly, you as parents, it's a testament to how loving and wonderful your family is. Which brings me, we've been talking about, you know, obstacles that we go through. And one of the biggest things on Education with an Edge, and I so admire that you both live this out as well, but, you know, it's just allowing especially young people to know that you will have trials and tribulations in a way. You will have things that come against you, but it's how you deal with it, and also how you come out stronger in that process, and hopefully surround yourself with people that love you and things, so that you learn something from it. It can help others. So I and our audience would love to know the story. There is a story about your family and something that your family went through, and how Voice of Our Child was born. And so we would love to hear from both of you about that.
Okay.
I'll let Caroline go with that, because I think it's good.
So what happened was, I mean, our oldest daughter, when she was I think 18 going on to 19, I started kind of noticing things that I thought as a parent was like, oh, she was lazy, she wanted to sleep most of the time. If I gave her chores, she almost like had an attitude, you know. I just thought, and anybody who I talked to was like, oh, teenagers are like that. I was like, my goodness. She was our first kid. I was like, wow, this teenage thing, I wanted to, you know, to end. And we just kind of crashed like that in personality because of, oh, can you plug this in there for me? Sorry. Our computer is, oh, we lost her. Did we lose you? Oh, sorry. Oh yeah, I need to plug in my computer.
Oh no, you're fine.
Yeah. That wasn't plugged in. So I didn't even know what it was. I just thought it was a teenage thing, and we just really crashed so much. And then she goes to college, and she comes back after a few kind of months, and she's perfect. And I said, oh my goodness, I guess then she just needed to have gone to school, and then she just changed, right? So she was this really great kid, and we were talking, we have a fantastic relationship. And a few months, like maybe 8 months before that, David had just told me for the first time about his struggle with depression, right? So I'm just like talking to my daughter. She was older now, and I'm talking to her, and I'm like, yeah, I'm just so glad, Dad is getting all this help. And she seemed to know so much about it, but I wasn't really getting it until one day David was on a business trip because his work takes him out of state a lot. And I had a flat tire during the day, so I had a donut tire. It's 11 at night. I'm going to bed, and she calls me and says, "Mommy, I tried to kill myself." I'm like, what? Like, I'm thinking to myself, what, God, what is this? I ran across to my neighbor's house, and I asked her, can you just give me the keys to your car? And I'm sure she didn't even ask me anything. She's probably thinking, oh, it's 11 at night, husband is not there, where is she going? But anyway, it takes an hour and 15 minutes to get to my daughter's school. I think it took me maybe 40 minutes max. I just like stepped on the gas in that car. I just took
off. It was a Mustang.
It was a Mustang too. So I was like, so anyway, I get there. So when she called me, I'm like telling, is your roommate there? Tell them to get you to a doctor. Call 911. So the whole way I'm praying. I'm asking God, like, God, what is this? My husband, a few months ago, had just remembered he struggled with depression. Now we had just fixed that way. He was seeing a psychiatrist. And then my daughter, I'm thinking to myself, like, what is this? Like, she's in a private school. She has what is her problem? I'm not thinking about teen depression. I had never even thought about it. I mean, I grew up in Africa. We didn't have that. You were not depressed. If somebody broke up with you and you were depressed, you were given so many chores to do, you never had time to be depressed, And so I go there and I didn't even ask her like what happened. I just went and I hugged her and I just stayed there with her. But I remember getting to this place and seeing like the psych ward and how it is. And I'm thinking, God, my child doesn't belong here. Like, what is going on, So I'm just sitting with her, didn't even ask her what happened, just sat there with her until the doctor came in, the psychiatrist, and she's being asked like, oh, so when did you stop taking your medication? She's like, oh, I stopped taking, oh, how long had you been on your medication? Oh, for over a year. And the doctor's asking me, oh, so what and I'm like, medication? She's not on any medication. And he's asking me, oh, you're the mom? I'm like, yeah. I said, what medication? So she's saying, oh, I was on this medication that I was given because when I came to college, I went to a counselor. I got this medication because I was feeling depressed. And I just stopped taking the medication. So now he started explaining to me, when people are on medication for depression, you can't just stop cold turkey. She stopped because she was young. She thought, oh, now I'm feeling better. Now I can stop the medication, So I'm listening to all this for the first time, and I'm blaming myself, and I'm like thinking of things in her life, and I'm like, oh my God, my poor child was not lazy. Oh, she didn't have an attitude. Oh my God, she was suffering, and I didn't see it. And instantly, when I got home, I decided I have to go and speak about that. I tried to, reach out to the schools, and everything wasn't really coming out. And that's when I decided to compete for Mrs. Pennsylvania, because I knew that with my platform, there'd be many opportunities open for me to speak, in different places. And I made that my platform. I wanted to make sure that no other parent missed out on all the signs that I missed out on, and no other child suffered in silence, not knowing. She didn't know what she was suffering from. She used to tell me, she says, Mommy, I used to feel so bad. Like I was just angry and I didn't know what it was. And I feel bad because you were angry at me. And I could tell that you didn't know what I was feeling. I didn't know what to call what I was feeling. And then so I competed as Mrs. Pennsylvania, which was amazing because I actually was able to travel internationally to speak, because I have so many different, friends in so many different countries from being in the Mrs. World. But I won the title of Mrs. Pennsylvania, and then I decided I founded the organization Voice of Our Child, which I wanted again to make sure that every child could come there and talk about their issues and feel important. But one of the ideas that I had was like, every time I would take my kids to Kenya on vacation, they were so great, including this one who had suffered from depression. They would just drive and just like really be awesome kids. And I think that has helped their personality. It made them more empathetic. We'd go there and engage them in community service, and they would take all their toys and old clothes, and we'd go and help the people there. And I thought to myself, I said, my goodness, what if I took troubled teens to Kenya on this mission trip, and make them do the work. And we started sponsoring kids. We'd be at a church, and this kid would be talking about their life, and I'm telling my husband, we're taking that kid to Kenya. And he'd be like, how are we paying for it? I said, I'm like, I don't know, but we're taking them. But we've seen lives change. We've seen lives change. And so, yeah, the voice of our child became, our baby.
And that kid changed our life too.
And that kid,
the one that we brought to Kenya.
Yeah.
And I think what's so beautiful about that story is that you are obviously both phenomenal parents and phenomenal people. And I think that it's real insight into the fact that depression and suicide can legitimately affect everyone.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Even David, the story that you shared, and the students that I have worked with, I mean, it really truly crosses the barriers and the borders between, it doesn't matter what socioeconomic class they are or that you are, it doesn't matter what race you are, that when they say, that the devil seeks to destroy and to kill, that he will attack you, or he will attack your family. And if you don't stay strong, then it can be really, really bad. And I know that the times in my life that I was feeling the worst about myself or whatever, and you fixate on those negative thoughts. What I'm the most impressed with, I guess, about Voice of Our Child is that it takes something that's very negative, and it changes their perspective so that they're helping someone else, which if you truly think, and this is not to sound like, but if you truly think about depression and suicide, you are constantly thinking about yourself. I mean, it's devastating, but you are, kind of in a way, you're very fixated on yourself going through that process, and feeling negative about yourself. And what you both have done have taken that and literally changed lives, but also changed their perspective into thinking, you know what, if I feel bad about myself today, I'm going to go and help somebody. I'm going to go, even if I can't go to Africa right now with Carolyn and David, I'm going to go volunteer at the nursing home.
Yes.
That's going to be my coping skill. You know what I mean? Because
in helping others, they help themselves.
Yes. And also just the opportunity, the life of a changing and life affirming opportunity to see, you know what, I do have a lot to be blessed for. Look at how happy these beautiful people are, and they have materialistically way less than I do, right? Even in America, regardless of even if you're middle class, in America. And so I think that's such a valid point that, our love and our happiness and things like that don't come from materialistic
things. They really don't. One of the things that we do when we go to Kenya is we have a day where we have teenagers from Kenya and teenagers from the US exchange ideas like on what makes you stressful.
Yeah.
And it was just so interesting to hear. It's like everybody we took was like listening and going like, these kids in Africa saying, oh, I struggle. I wonder, are we gonna eat something tomorrow, or will my parents be able to pay for my school fees, or will my dad beat my mom tonight, or tomorrow we have to go get water in the river, we have to flashlights so that we're not attacked by wild animals. And the older, if it's an older boy, he's wondering about the younger sister. Oh, I wonder if she goes to the river, if she's going to be raped, should I go with her? And then the kids in the US were sitting there and they had gone fast and they were talking about, oh, I get stressed because my phone, my parents are not giving me the biggest phone. Oh, I worry because, and then when they had all the kids you could see it's like their eyes opening to reality. And just, they just totally change. Like what keeps you awake at night and what keeps another person awake at night are totally two different.
Totally.
The happiness that I saw there in Kenya too. I mean, from the very first time that I went there, I just saw people that, as Caroline or you were saying, have much less monetarily and things that they own than I do. And I don't think that we're wealthy by any means. and these people had very little. I remember seeing some lady that came to church with us, and she looked beautiful, had a beautiful dress, and she looked so happy, like she would talk about how God blessed her and everything. And after church, she walked across the street, which is where the slums are, and that's where she lived. She lived in the slums, and her house was like a dirt floor, and just four walls. But she was happier, way happier than I was.
Right.
And she was blessed by God for what she. It's not really what you have. It's kind of like you're just blessed by God, and just having God in your life and having a relationship there makes you happy, and you don't need all this other stuff. You know.
Absolutely. And I think that we in the United States are starting to, I hope that we're starting to recognize that, you know, with some people are getting into the minimalist movement, or, you know, or trying, because it's not, I mean, it's not accumulating things or chasing things are not going to give you peace, right? It's just, but giving back and being kind and doing what the two of you are doing, which is legitimately leaving a legacy of people that you will help, children's lives who have been saved that you don't know. We could have, I mean, you are in effect fighting a battle against forces that we can't see, right? That we don't know, you know, how many young men and women have been saved and will go on to change other people's lives because of the work, because of the seeds that both of you planted and that your children are planting. And that's beautiful. I mean, that's what everybody wants, you know?
Yeah. I keep saying that I think that God brought me to this situation where I had to have a child who suffers from depression and a husband who suffers from depression, so that I can actually get it, you know? Because and I know that I'll never get it. I can listen to them, but I don't get it. But then it makes me be able to relate with another kid who's struggling, or somebody who, as an adult, who's struggling. And it's such a, because I think I always was so worried about the rate of suicide. You know, as a parent, I was worried. I used to ask my kids, like, what do they tell you in school when a kid commits suicide? They're like, oh, they say if you're sad, you could talk to the counselor, you know? But I always feel like God has called me to be a voice for something. And I just kept thinking about it, but I never did anything about it. And so when it happened to my daughter, I remember telling God, I said, oh my goodness, you really had to bring it to my doorstep for me to go out there and do something, you know? And yeah.
And I think too, that you are strong enough, and God knew that you were strong enough that you were going to take it, and you weren't just going to say, well, you know, because there would be some parents, and I've known people and, you know, that could have been embarrassed about it, could have whatever. And you said, no, we're going to put this on the forefront, and we are going to do something positive about it. And we're going to show everyone, because that's what it is. People that go through sadness and depression, they feel alone and they feel isolated. And God, for both of you, thank you, David, and thank you to your daughter, and thank you to you, Dr. Caroline, for sharing and for saying, no, look at our beautiful family. This was on our doorstep. This is how we are dealing with it. You know, you can't just ignore it and pretend like it's going to go away.
I think the stigma of mental illness makes people not talk about it, because I remember when it just happened, I was afraid to say anything to anybody. I felt like a bad mother. I felt like I had failed. I was like, what are people going to think? But when I went back to school to read about it and to do this research, I found out, like, it's the same way somebody's kid could be born with autism, or the same way somebody's kid could be born with cancers, you know, or anything. And there was no shame in it, you know? And by speaking openly, and it just took like forever. Like every time my husband talks about his depression, I get goosebumps. It took him until maybe last year, or even just a couple of months ago.
I didn't want her to talk about it when I first told her. I says, I tell you something, but I don't want you to say it to anybody. So I told her all about what I was going through and the things I was feeling and things I was thinking of doing or whatever. And and then I says, okay, now you know, now don't talk about it. And that would drive her nuts, of course, you know, but to me, I didn't want anybody to know it because I guess that's the stigma. I don't want people to know that I'm crazy, I'm a nut or whatever. I mean, to me, that's what I'm thinking about it in my head. I'm a nut, I'm a crazy nut, you know. And what if my employer found out that I'm like this? That
most
kind
of
of stuff.
most of the smartest people that I have met have suffered from depression.
I was just gonna.
I call it a
And why
smart
don't
people's
you?
disease because I'm not that smart. That's why I'm always like, wait a second, what? I'm telling you seriously, like I've met like senators and people like that in top government officials who I'm talking to, and they're like, Caroline, it's so good that you talk about mental illness just like that because it makes a lot of people open up and talk about it.
Yes.
Because there's all been this stigma. I really think the smart people really get it.
Yes.
You know,
highly intelligent, highly creative.
Yes.
And I think if you even go back through history, and I've talked to students about this, you know, famous artists, famous composers, you know, famous scientists that dealt with really, you know, self-deprecative thoughts, you know, or self-deprecating thoughts that just very negative, and never being good enough. And I think that comes from kind of being so talented and gifted and holding yourself to maybe an unrealistic standard.
That's true.
And once you know, have a healthy relationship, if you can see yourself the way that God sees you, we all wish that, right? We all wish that we could give ourselves the grace that God gives us freely. And if we can remember that and hold on to that, but having a community and having people like you that are changing lives every single day. I mean, I'm grateful. I'm so very grateful for both of you because I know that there's someone, honestly, I believe that there is someone that's listening to this that needs to hear your message. And maybe they're going to go with you. Maybe they're going to go with you to Kenya, or maybe they're just going to say, you know what, they're right. I deserve to have a good life and I deserve to be here. And I'm going to fight. And it doesn't mean that it's always going to be easy, right? But there's a purpose and a plan for them. And it's so very important. And so with that, and not to put you on the spot, but we'll do Dr. Caroline, and then we'll do you, David. What is one piece of advice to a young person that's listening today that you would like to tell them?
I would like to tell them, what do you think that's going to kill you now? It's not going to kill you. What do you think that whatever you're going through right now, somebody else has gone through it and has come out on the other end? And as you're growing up, there's so many obstacles that you will meet in your life, but you have, and that's what we do with our mentorship with the voice of our child. Like, we bring people like you who talk about their life, you know, writing a book from universities. We bring another person who writes a book about being an immigrant to this country and then, you know, suffering all the shame and being mocked at school. We bring people like Michaela, who was talking about being in a foster home and having sisters who she didn't know if they'd be with them tomorrow because they were all in foster care and if they were going to be moved to another family. Or even people like Rob Mark and talking about depression and what he did out of it. Those life skills that we offer these kids is so that if they're ever going through any of those things, they'll know like, oh, look, this person went through that and now they are a successful adult. And look at my husband, he went through it all his life. He's the vice president of his company. So I tell all these kids every time, if somebody breaks up with you, because I think that one of the things that through my education that I found that really affects kids so much is when somebody breaks up with them. Because it's the first thing ever in their life that they have received somebody who just tells them, I don't love you. You know, they've grown being loved by their mother, their father, their grandmother, their uncles, whether they're chubby, whether they're short, whether they, you know, and then they go and meet somebody of the opposite sex who says, oh, I love you. And it's a thing they've never, like, you know, it's a different kind of love. And then one day this person tells you, I don't love you. They've never had that. It's a shock. It hits them, and a lot of kids have committed suicide just because somebody broke up with them. I tell these kids all the time, you should know how many times we've had our hearts broken, and look at where we are now. You know,
Yes.
this too shall pass. Anything that you're feeling right now, and when I see like letters, kids write like a suicide note and then kill themselves, it breaks my heart, because that is normally the first time that the parents are even realizing that the kid was suffering. And so whenever I talk to teenagers, I say, use that same effort that you're going to write that letter to write now, when you can talk to their parents and they can fix it and help you. Then at the last minute, when you just write it and then you're gone, and then it's like, they blame themselves for things that they didn't see. So it's going to be okay. It's definitely going to be okay. And a lot of people have gone through what you're going through, and you're going to be fine.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. That was beautiful, Dr. Caroline. And I agree with you. I think that a lot of the time you make a very valid point about the relationship, because I mean, we all remember, I remember the first major
breakup.
Oh my goodness, and you think that your life is over, and it's like, I'm just gonna cash in my chips,
Yeah, that's true.
You're 16, you're gonna, I mean, it's but it's easier said than done. And I also think that it's important, as we as adults, and I don't know if you agree with me, but I do think it's important to validate a young person's feelings.
Oh, definitely. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
It's the most important thing. We look at that as an adult and say, oh my goodness, you're going to have so many more boyfriends and girlfriends, and you're going to be fine, and you're a good looking kid, or a beautiful young lady. But that to them at that time is the most important thing going on in their life, all encompassing, and it affects everything. And so giving them that validation, but then also what you are both doing and showing them a way to walk through that someone can come out on the other side and be fine.
I think the best thing that a parent can do, or any adults to a child, is to tell them, I truly understand what you're feeling. I've walked my kids through breakups.
Yeah.
I have told them, I know what you feel right now. I have been there.
Yeah.
I know I probably was worse than you are right now. I know exactly how you're feeling. I know you don't even want to eat. I know you don't want to get out of bed. I know you're so heartbroken, But I was there too. And I know exactly how you're feeling. But all I can tell you, yes, go through those feelings, but don't give up.
Yes.
Do not give up. This is not the end of your life. Do not take your life, because that person will keep on living. Just, hang on, and it's going to be bad. And I let them sleep the whole day they want to sleep, and I just let them do whatever they want to do. Just do not do anything bad to yourself.
And just like he did in your life, and just like he did in your life, David, and just like he did in my life, he will turn all things for your good.
Oh, yes.
Every single day, and get up and walk. You know what I mean? Put one foot in front of the other. He will turn all things for their good. And so that's so important. David, so what is one thing that you would like to tell on your amazing journey that you've had, and the success that you've had, and you've seen the light at the end of the tunnel, but you've also walked through some dark days? What would you tell a person that's suffering from depression right now, or who's contemplating suicide? What would you like to tell them?
I would like to tell them that just open up to somebody that is gonna be, is love you whether you feel this way or not, or whether you think that you want to kill yourself or you don't. Just open up and talk to them. Don't keep it all bottled up inside. If you're a kid or an adult, it doesn't make any difference. There's a lot of people that feel that way, and the only way you're going to really help, or one of the better ways to help yourself, is to open up to somebody. The first person I opened up to was Caroline, and it was really scary. It took me a half a year or longer to get the courage to say something to anybody. And I went to Caroline and I opened up and I told her, and it was so scary to tell her. And then it was so scary that I didn't want her to tell anybody, because I didn't want everybody to think I was a crazy nut. And eventually, now I can I can talk about it. You know, I still get depressed and things like that, but I can talk about it and I can tell people this is what I felt and this is, you know, this is how I'm feeling now or whatever. I can tell people exactly what I feel like now. Sometimes I knew I wasn't feeling right, but I didn't know how to tell them what I was feeling. But now I can much easier tell people what I'm feeling. So I think as a child or an adult, if you're feeling like that, open up to somebody. It doesn't. It can be a parent. It can be a friend. It can be a counselor. It can be anybody that you feel comfortable going to and talking to. Just go to somebody and open up to somebody and let them know this is what you feel, no matter how scary it is. And then I'd also like to talk to the the people out there who are going to be told that kind of stuff, to be, when you get told that kind of thing by your child or by your friend or by whomever, be empathetic and be loving, and put your arm around them and say that you love them, and that whatever they need, anytime they need to call you or talk to you about this, just call me and talk to me about this. And if there's anything I can do to help you, I can drive you to some place to have a, you know, talk with a counselor or whatever. Um, just be open to people that are going to be open to you about those kind of feelings. Let them talk. You don't have to fix everything that they're saying. You can just listen and let them talk, because sometimes it's very easy to, you know, want to give all these different suggestions, you know, that, oh, well, maybe you should do this or do this. I think the best way is just to listen. I know when I talked to Caroline, she didn't say a whole lot. She just listened. She just listened, and I talked to her, and eventually I gradually said a little more and a little more and a little more, and it was really scary. But I opened up, and she was willing to listen to me, and she listened to me in a loving and an empathetic way. So I'd like to talk to both those sides of people, and encourage them to be that kind of a person.
Thank you. That was very good, David. Yeah, that was very good, because sometimes when you're told that, that's such a, I mean, you would pray that you would have the right response, you know, to someone, but that's very important to remember, that this person's really bearing their soul to you.
Right.
So, and quite potentially has never told anyone. And thank goodness that Carolyn was just able to listen and really be that empathetic, you know, really have a heart for you and feel for you. But I can see some other people in different situations trying to give you advice and things like that. While it's good intended, they have good intentions, I can see that, you know, being difficult sometimes, that just to be a compassionate and listening ear, and be ready to receive that information. I think that's important for anyone that works with children too, teachers, counselors, parents, to be ready for that.
That's one of the things that we always hope, that the schools, like the schools that we work with in Kenya, we want them to talk about mental health as part of the education, because when kids start hearing it from a very young age, they will not be afraid of it. They'll have no shame in it. And even like just removing that stigma, when you hold a lot of seminars, when you talk to these parents of these kids about mental health, it becomes just another thing. The same way you can talk to your friend about, you know, breast cancer or something, or sore throat, or even a headache, you can tell them about those feelings, because what brings the fear, it's a sacred thing, like nobody's supposed to know.
Yeah. The biggest thing that I want to do is that I want to promote your organization, and I would love for you to share how our viewers could find out more about Voice of Our Child, find out more about the two of you. These are two, honestly, they're in New Jersey and I'm in Nebraska, but I have such a heart for these two people, and I admire everything that they are doing. And they are dear, dear friends. I consider them even miles and miles, hundreds of miles away. My heart is with them. They are just the most wonderful, God-filled people, honestly, walking the walk. They talk the talk too, but they walk the walk. which is so very rare today. And so how can people help Voice of Our Child, donate, help you with anything that you would need for your trips and things like that? But then how can our audience contact you or get involved as well?
Well, we have a website, and they can go to that website, voiceofourchild.org,
Yeah, or they could go to Water Gap and then dash Africa Safaris, and they can, there's places there if you want to just donate to people in Kenya with the school supplies, or if you want to sponsor a child to be able to go to Kenya, you could do that there too. But I always encourage everybody to come on those trips that we go to, because when we started doing those trips, we just started doing with our church members from church, going on these mission trips, and then it just started expanding, and then they would come back and be excited and talk to their friends. But everybody who has gone on those trips always says, my life was forever changed. Yeah. Like it's everybody says, my life was forever changed. And we try to really make it affordable for people to go, because like I used to work in the tour industry, so I know how to get like mission trip rates, and we try like to take people into places, if they're even gonna buy souvenirs or things, to the people who really carve those things themselves to make it cheaper for them. We try to talk to the airlines about making it affordable for us to go. I mean, we stay in the same places that people who have paid maybe $10,000, $20,000 are staying in the same lodges, with us when we go for the safari, and we're going with the same vehicles, but we are able to get people there that way. And also in giving, our trips are not just like, why do you want to come from a 5-star home and then go to Africa and stay in a 5-star, place? Yeah. The hotels in Kenya, even like a 3-star hotel in Kenya, because it's a tourist country, they're gorgeous, they're beautiful. I took the owner of the Mrs. World there, and he was like, this is one of the most beautiful countries I've ever seen, because it's a hospitality country, so accommodations are fantastic, the food is great, and being able to give back. We give school supplies, like now with the book that you wrote, we want to go and read those to kids there and give them those books. We built a library there, that we give books to. But people giving back, like one of the things we do is like we go on a tea picking day, and what we are trying to teach everybody on our trip is the value of $1, because like most families earn just like $2 for a whole day of tea picking. And because we go there, we wear those baskets they have, we go tea picking, we have it weighed, we get paid, most of us make a 10 cents or something, we go to the tea factory. But it makes my kids appreciate the next time they go to Starbucks and they buy a tea and just sip once and throw it out, they're thinking, oh my goodness, I just threw out like a whole 3 days work. And we go like to the slum areas just to hear the stories of the people who live there. One of the things that we do is like when you go there, we always go on TV. We have a 2-hour slot where we just talk to the people there about the personal stories. Maybe some of the people we travel have a story that they feel can impact the people. And I think that everybody needs to have a trip to go to Africa. I think that you went there, and we took his mom last year.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. My mom came for the first time.
That's amazing. It's like
they can also follow us on our social media pages. Yeah.
She came in her 80s.
Yeah, she came in her 80s. Yeah, and she did really good.
Really good.
She loved it.
Yeah, she loved it. We meet with the local people there. We have like dinner with the host family one night, and it's really is a fantastic time. And we always build. People say that the one thing they really enjoy is the giving. It's a giving, where they're not just going as tourists. When I was a kid, I saw these tourists who came in these tour vehicles, and all they could throw out of the window was an empty bottle of water. Yeah. Now we stop and buy a water holding tank for people. Now we stop and give the kids school supplies on the streets. So that giving back, and that's what makes even the kids who we take want to give. We go with people who are like, can I just leave these shoes here? Can I just leave everything? They leave even the clothes that they have there with the people, because they see how these people appreciate what they're giving them. Yeah.
We always encourage our the people that come to bring an extra suitcase.
Yeah.
We can have two suitcases, but one would be for what they want to bring for themselves. The other would be things they want to give to people, clothing, toys, school supplies, bed sheets, whatever.
Yeah.
So everybody comes with two suitcases, and one is full of things that they're going to give to people.
I
And
think
they get a huge blessing from doing that too.
Oh, absolutely. And I think too, the thing that I am seeing more and more, or maybe it's just for myself, because is that, it's one thing, and I obviously it's so very wonderful to donate your finances and things like that. And I think that that's great. But when you actually go and immerse yourself in the culture and you actually volunteer and give back, those are the moments that change you forever, instead of just, and I don't want to say that because I don't want to say like just writing a check, but it is, there's a lot of fundraising and there's a lot of things, but the things that have really been the most memorable for me is when I actually immersed myself in a situation. And so that's what you are offering people. And I cannot speak highly enough about the both of you. And I'm so very grateful that you took your time and your energy, and that you are giving your talents, and that your children are giving your talents. And honestly, may God continue to bless both of you. And I know that He will. And I love you both dearly. And thank you.
We love you so much.
Yes.
And thank you for just even your generosity. Like
Oh,
you sending those books, and my kids were like, it was like Christmas waiting. And I'm thinking, I'm telling them, you all live in the same house. Just read what they're like, no, but she signed it. She signed it. So that makes it mine. So that was, because I mean, we meet so many different people, and we've taken people who have a lot of money, on our trips. And it's not even normally the people who have the most money who give the most. We've gone with people who we were thinking, okay, we even were thinking they're going to feel bad because they wouldn't know what to give when they go there. And then they go there and they just give, and they're just so touched. And it's whenever we read the reviews when people come back, it just also changes our lives. Like these people, it's almost like I start seeing my country for the first time through the eyes of somebody else.
Yeah.
And people write these reviews, and we're reading them, and we have tears in our eyes, and we're thinking, this person is that compassionate? We didn't think they were like that. But it touched them in a way that they've just never experienced before. They say, I grew up in the US all my life. I thought that having, maybe when lights were out, there was a storm, was a problem. I thought that, and they just start a purpose in their life. We've had people who we've taken there, they've started a business, they go there and they find carvings, and they come here and they think, oh, I could start a store. I could,
it's definitely, you both obviously have phenomenal callings in your professions and things, but this is, I feel like your calling. Like, I feel like, that you're really being called, not just to help not just to help the people of Kenya, but also to help those of us to open our eyes, really, to become awakened.
And people can follow us on our social media pages too, at Verkaik Caroline. Mostly I'm posting there about what I'm doing. And or on Facebook, Caroline Verkaik. And we also have our social media pages, the Watergap-Africa Safaris and the Voice of Our Child also out there. So they could go in and see the things that we are doing in their lives that have been changed.
Yes.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so very much once again, Dr. Caroline and David Verkaik, and dear, sweet, wonderful. I certainly feel like God put you both in my life. And so I am so very grateful to you and to Voice of Our Child. And thank you for being on Education with an Edge. And I truly hope that this message, I truly hope and I pray and I know that this message is going to help a young person out there, or someone struggling with depression or suicide. So
we really hope so. Yes. We really hope so. And we love teachers. We I mean, I really have love teachers, and especially right now after being with my kids, I love teachers even more.
And both of us were teachers at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just taught for a month. He was a teacher by profession. I don't think I have what it takes to be a teacher, but I love teachers, and what you bring to our children is beautiful. It's really truly beautiful. And for you to even think of writing such a story, like bullies, like bullying, like I think that sometimes even institutions don't even take it as serious as it is. And after you were done, after you got off, our kids talked about it, and they said, oh wow, you could turn a bully into your bestie. And they started talking about like kids in school who they knew were bullies, and you could see that they got it.
Got it. Yeah.
They finally got it. And I was like, wow, I've been a parent this long, I never really thought of telling them that. It's like they got it. So
I
we're
love
very lucky. Yeah, we're very lucky. And to have Rebecca as
Oh,
moderator and her being a teacher, she brings so much to the voice of our child, and we're just so grateful to her. And for her introducing us to you, we are forever grateful. And I hope one day we can see you in Kenya.
Yes,
oh, I'm going. I'm going.
Yeah.
I'm going.
I love seeing your mom. She's such a
Yes,
beautiful young lady.
I'm
Yes.
bringing her. She's not gonna wait till she's 80. We're getting her there.
Yeah.
She's 62, so she's good.
Oh, she's young. Oh,
yeah.
she's younger than David. He's 63. I can't wait to probably like take a video of you reading to the kids there, and just sharing it here. And
it's, I mean, I literally have visions about it, and so I honestly I cannot wait.
Yeah.
It's gonna be great. So
thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you both of you for your time. Thank you for what you're doing, and I cannot thank you enough. So thank you for being with us here tonight, and this is Education with an Edge. Once again, please check out Dr. Caroline and David Verkaik, their social media handles as well as their website, Voice of Our Child. These are two change makers that are changing lives. Thank you so much, and have a good night.
Okay, thank you so much, and have a good night too.
Bye, guys.
Bye.